All right, so you're getting ready for a logistics associate interview.
Smart move.
Yeah, let's make sure you're not just prepared, but that you really knock their socks off. We're diving deep into Indeed.com's guide on logistics associate interview questions. We're going to pull out the real gems, the stuff that'll help you stand out.
It's interesting. This guy doesn't just focus on the basic stuff. It really digs into what makes a logistics associate, you know, really valuable.
More than just knowing how to, pack a truck efficiently.
Exactly. This guide highlights three major areas: handling pressure, deep knowledge of logistics and supply chain management, and creative problem solving. And look, those might seem obvious, at first glance, but there's real depth there.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. What does handling pressure really look like in this field? It's not like just a typical 9 to 5 office job, is it?
You've got tight deadlines, sometimes dealing with international time zones. Then there are unexpected disruptions, weather events, supplier issues, a whole container ship getting stuck sideways in a canal.
Yeah, that was a rough one for global supply chains.
Exactly. All of a sudden, you need to find a workaround. And it needs to be cost-effective. Employers want to know you can think on your feet. And D, you've got the industry knowledge to make the right calls fast.
So it's about proving you can handle the chaos. Handle the chaos gracefully. Speaking of proof, the guide has a bunch of sample answers. Some are pretty generic. But a few really jumped out at me. Like there's one for handling stressful situations. It talks about prioritizing tasks, focusing on solutions instead of problems. Pretty standard stuff, right?
Sure, on the surface. But what makes it powerful is how it's phrased. It uses action verbs. It emphasizes staying calm. And it subtly hints at leadership. It's not just, I freak out, but I get it done. It's more, I take charge and guide everyone towards the solution.
Oh, so it's about the mindset you project, not just the tasks themselves. What about that sample answer for ensuring accuracy in documentation, the one that mentions double-checking? And setting up an audit system.
That's gold.
Yeah.
Most people would just say, oh, I'm careful. But this shows initiative. It says, I don't just meet standards, I create systems to exceed them.
That's what makes an employer think, okay, this person is going to make my life easier.
Right.
It's almost like reading between the lines of the questions themselves, right? The guide also asks about resolving logistics issues, handling sudden demand surges.
And optimizing costs.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
These aren't just random scenarios. They're giving you a peek into the company's priorities, maybe even hinting at their pain points if they're asking about cost optimization. Maybe they've had issues there and need someone who can tackle that.
So prepping for these questions, it's like getting a mini case study on the company itself. What stands out to you about these more specific questions?
To me, it's the emphasis on proactivity. They're not just looking for someone who can follow instructions. They want someone who can anticipate problems, spot opportunities for improvement, and take ownership of solutions.
Which brings us to the soft skills questions, which, let's face it, can feel a bit trickier to prepare for. The guide throws in stuff about maintaining vendor relationships, handling those, team members who shall not be named.
Ah, yes. The ineffective teammate classic.
And of course, how to prioritize when everything feels urgent. Because in logistics, everything often is urgent.
Right.
In the original version of this deep dive, I think we kind of skimmed over this section a bit too quickly, but these are absolutely crucial.
They are. It's about emotional intelligence, communication leadership. If you can nail these questions, it shows you can handle the human side of the operation, which can be just as complex as the technical stuff.
And honestly, those skills are valuable no matter what job you're doing. Have you ever worked with someone who is just impossible to deal with?
Let's just say I've learned a lot about conflict resolution and setting boundaries. But that's the thing. These are skills you build over time through experience. So for the listener out there, think back to your own work history.
Or even volunteer experiences.
Right. Where did you have to navigate a tricky situation, persuade someone, or take the lead when things were falling apart? Those are your gold mines. Jot down those stories.
Because those stories become the proof that you can handle whatever they throw at you.
Absolutely. And it helps you stand out from the crowd of people who just give textbook answers. You're showcasing your unique experience, your personality.
And proving you've got the skills to not just survive, but thrive in a fast-paced, demanding environment like logistics. Now, before we jump into career path stuff,
Let's talk about the FAQ section, which might seem like an afterthought, but it's packed with little hints about what they're really looking for. For instance, it mentions educational requirements and how a degree isn't always mandatory, but can definitely help with advancement.
So experience trumps a piece of paper sometimes. But a degree can give you an edge, especially if you're aiming for those leadership roles down the line.
Precisely. And you know what else caught my eye? The part about staying current on industry trends. They suggest reading blogs, attending webinars.
It's almost like they're low-key testing your passion for the field, right? Like if you can talk about the latest tech or trends, it shows you're genuinely interested, not just looking for any old job.
What's fascinating to me is that it hints at the type of person who excels in logistics. It's not just about knowing the processes, it's about being curious, wanting to optimize, always looking for that edge.
Someone who geeks out on supply chain documentaries, maybe? Okay, maybe that's just me. But I do see a pattern with some of the more specific questions, like the one about managing an ineffective team member. It's not just about delegating tasks, it's about leadership. And those, tricky interpersonal dynamics.
You hit the nail on the head. That question is a goldmine for showcasing your people skills. Can you give constructive feedback? Can you motivate someone who's dragging their feet? Those are essential skills for anyone who wants to move up in logistics.
And let's be real, those skills are valuable no matter what field you're in. Who hasn't had to deal with a difficult coworker at some point?
Let's just say I've had my share of experiences. And those are the stories that interviewers actually remember. Because they know those situations are inevitable. And they want to know you can handle them with grace and professionalism.
So instead of just saying, I'm a great team player, you can tell a story about that time you turned a negative Nancy into a productive powerhouse. That's way more compelling.
Exactly. It's about showing, not just telling. And the more specific you can be, the better.
Speaking of specifics, the guide throws in some questions about freight forwarding and route planning. Now that's getting a little more technical, isn't it?
It is. And that signals that the employer might be looking for someone with a deeper understanding of certain aspects of logistics. Now, even if you don't have direct experience in those areas, it's an opportunity to show your willingness to learn.
So even if you haven't personally managed a freight forwarding operation, you can talk about how you're eager to dive in and master that side of the business.
Exactly. Yeah, it all comes back to that growth mindset we were talking about. The logistics world is constantly changing. New technologies are emerging.
Drones delivering packages, self-driving trucks.
Exactly. So showing that you're adaptable, that you're excited to learn new things, that's a huge plus.
Because, let's be honest, no one knows everything right. But if you can convince them that you're a quick study and eager to take on new challenges, that speaks volumes.
It does. And it ties back to that question about staying updated on industry trends. If you can talk about a new technology you've been reading about, or a logistics challenge that's caught your attention.
It shows you're engaged. You're thinking critically about the field.
And that you're not just looking for a job. You're looking to build a career. That's the kind of passion that shines through in an interview.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. What are the key takeaways for our listener who's prepping for that big interview?
First, remember that employers are looking for more than just someone who can check off boxes on a list of tasks. They want someone who can handle pressure, who understands the complexities of the industry.
And who can think critically and solve problems proactively. That's a big one.
Absolutely. Second, preparation is key. Don't just wing it. Really dig into those sample questions. Think about specific examples from your own experience.
And don't be afraid to brag a little. Highlight those moments where you went above and beyond, where you really made a difference.
Third, don't neglect those soft skills questions. They're just as important as the technical ones.
Because in the end, it's about connecting with the interviewer on a human level, showing them that you're not just a robot who can move boxes around efficiently,
but a person who can communicate effectively, build relationships, and lead a team.
And finally, remember that the skills you're developing for this interview, the critical thinking, the problem solving, the communication, these are valuable in any field.
So even if you don't land this particular job, the effort you're putting in now will pay off in the long run. You're building a toolkit that will serve you well throughout your career.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something that often gets overlooked. It's the impact logistics has, on a company's success. We often get caught up in the day-to-day tasks. But this guide actually highlights how crucial this role is to the bigger picture.
It's true. They talk about cost efficiency, customer satisfaction, even how a smooth-running logistics operation directly affects a company's bottom line. That's powerful stuff.
It is. It's easy to feel like you're just moving boxes around, but you're really the backbone of the whole operation. And that's something you can highlight in your interview, right?
Absolutely. Show that you understand the weight of that responsibility, that you're not just there to punch a clock, but to contribute to the company's overall success. That kind of awareness really sets you apart.
It's not just about knowing where the boxes go. It's about understanding why it matters.
Exactly. And that ties back to what we were discussing earlier about staying current on industry trends. The more you understand the bigger picture, the global supply chains, the emerging technologies,
Right.
the more valuable you become to a company.
It's like you're not just a cog in the machine. You're someone who can help build a better machine.
I like that analogy. And it's something you can convey in your interview. Talk about how you're eager to learn, to contribute new ideas, to help the company adapt and thrive in a constantly changing environment.
So to wrap things up for our listener who's prepping for their interview, what would be your final piece of advice?
I'd say remember this. You're not just going in there to answer questions. You're going in there to tell a story, your story.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
It's about weaving together your skills, your experiences, your passion for the field, into a narrative that captivates the interviewer. Make them see you not just as a candidate, but as a future colleague, someone who's going to bring value to their team.
So it's not just about reciting facts and figures. It's about showcasing your personality, your unique perspective.
And your enthusiasm. Let them see that you're excited about this opportunity, that you're genuinely interested in the world of logistics, because that kind of passion is contagious.
I love that. It's about making a connection, showing them who you are beyond the resume bullet points.
Exactly. And when you do that, you stand out from the crowd. You become memorable. And that's what lands you the job.
That's such great advice. So for our listener out there, remember, you got this. Go in there, tell your story, and rock that interview.
Got it.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. We hope you found this insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, the world of logistics is full of opportunities. For those who are willing to learn, adapt,